Welcome back. Before we begin, a gentle reminder. If this voice has become a quiet companion in your nights, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's the simplest way to ensure this space remains for you. Now, let that thought drift away. Tonight, we're doing something different. We often explore theories that live in the shadows, unproven, speculative, mysterious. But tonight, we look at the ones that stepped into the light. The conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Not because we want to say, I told you so, not to fuel suspicion or fear, but because there is something strangely comforting in knowing that sometimes the human instinct to question authority is correct. Sometimes the pattern we see is real. Sometimes they really were hiding something. Here are 10 times the truth caught up with a theory. In the 1950s and 60s, a rumor began circulating. People claimed the CIA was experimenting with mind control, drugging unsuspecting citizens, trying to program human behavior like machines. It sounded like science fiction, paranoia, the ramblings of people who watch too many movies. Except it was all true. MK Ultra was a real CIA program. They dosed people with LSD without consent. They subjected them to sensory deprivation, hypnosis, electroshocks. They ran brothels where clients were secretly given hallucinogens while agents watched through one-way mirrors. The novelist Ken Kesey volunteered for early experiments, but many victims never volunteered at all. They were left permanently damaged. When the truth emerged in the 1970s, the CIA destroyed most records, but enough survived to confirm what the theorists had been saying all along. The government really was trying to control minds. Here's a theory that sounds too dark to be real. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people whispered that the government was stealing bodies. Not just any bodies, babies, children. They wanted to study the effects of radiation on young tissue. Impossible, right? Barbaric. But in the 1990s, declassified documents confirmed Project Sunshine. The US government had indeed recruited a worldwide network of agents to collect the remains of deceased infants and children. More than 1,500 families never knew their babies' body parts had been taken. The researchers weren't monsters, necessarily. They were trying to understand nuclear fallout, but they operated in secret, without consent, without notification. The conspiracy theorists weren't crazy. They were just early. In the 1960s, activists claimed the FBI was infiltrating their groups, planting informants, spreading misinformation, trying to destroy the civil rights movement from within. It was easy to dismiss as paranoia. After all, why would the government target its own citizens? Then the files came out. COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, had indeed targeted Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panthers, anti-war groups, feminist organizations. They used dirty tricks. Anonymous letters suggesting violence, false accusations. Psychological warfare designed to break movements apart. A Senate investigation in the 1970s confirmed it all. The activists weren't imagining things. They were being watched, undermined, and attacked by their own government. For decades, tobacco companies insisted their products were safe. They ran ads with doctors. They claimed smoking was healthy, even recommended. Skeptics said they were lying, hiding evidence, putting profits before lives. In the 1990s, internal documents proved the skeptics right. Tobacco executives had known since the 1950s that cigarettes caused cancer. They knew about the addiction. They knew about the deaths, and they buried it all behind closed doors. When the truth came out, it changed everything. Lawsuits, regulations, public health campaigns. But millions had already died. The conspiracy wasn't about shadowy cabals. It was about corporate greed dressed up as legitimate business. During Prohibition, a strange rumor circulated. People said the government was poisoning alcohol deliberately to punish drinkers. It sounded absurd. The government wouldn't poison its own citizens, but it was true. Between 1926 and 1933, the federal government required industrial alcohol manufacturers to add deadly chemicals to their products. The goal was to discourage bootleggers from stealing and reselling it. The bootleggers didn't stop. They just sold the poisoned alcohol anyway. By the end of Prohibition, more than 10,000 Americans had died from tainted liquor. The government knew exactly what it was doing. The conspiracy wasn't a conspiracy, it was policy. For years, privacy advocates warned that the government was collecting data on ordinary citizens. Phone records, emails, internet activity. Most people shrugged. If you've done nothing wrong, what's the harm? Then Edward Snowden happened. In 2013, documents revealed the NSA was indeed collecting metadata on millions of Americans. They had programs with names like Prism and Xcore. They tapped into fiber optic cables. They built data centers in the desert. The government wasn't just spying on terrorists. They were spying on everyone. In 2016 alone, agencies sent nearly 50,000 data requests to Facebook. Thousands more to Google, to Apple. The paranoid ones weren't paranoid. They were just paying attention. In 1964, President Johnson announced that American ships had been attacked by North Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin incident became the justification for full-scale war. Skeptics questioned the story almost immediately. It seemed too convenient, too clean. Decades later, declassified intelligence proved them right. The first attack had happened, yes. But the second attack, the one that triggered the escalation, never occurred. The administration had misled Congress and the public to get the war they wanted. Tens of thousands of Americans died. Hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese, all based on a lie. The conspiracy theorists, the ones who said we were tricked into war, they were right. This one feels almost funny. For years, people claimed the Dalai Lama was a CIA asset, a spiritual leader paid by the Americans. It sounded like the kind of thing people invent to discredit someone. But declassified documents tell a different story. During the 1960s, the Dalai Lama received $180,000 from the U.S. government as part of CIA funding for Tibetan resistance efforts. The goal was to disrupt China's infrastructure. The conspiracy was real. The checks cleared. Here's one that might keep you awake. In the early 1960s, the Joint Chiefs of Staff drafted a plan. They proposed staging fake terrorist attacks on American soil, blowing up planes, shooting civilians, manufacturing a crisis all to justify invading Cuba. The plan was real. The documents exist. It was never approved. President Kennedy said no. But the fact that military leaders even considered it, that they wrote it down, detailed it, presented it as a serious option, that tells us something about how close we came to something unimaginable. The theorists who warned about false flags, they weren't inventing the idea. They were reading the historical record. John Lennon sang about peace. He opposed the Vietnam War. He used his platform to question authority. The FBI noticed. For years, rumors circulated that Lennon was under surveillance, that the government saw him as a threat. In the 1990s, declassified FBI files confirmed it. They'd been watching him since 1971. They tried to have him deported. They tracked his movements, his associates, his activism. The counterculture hero was exactly as dangerous as the authorities feared, which is to say, not dangerous at all. Just honest. This one sounds ridiculous. The government trained psychic spies. Remote viewers who could see across continents, read minds, gather intelligence using only their thoughts. It's the kind of thing that belongs in comic books. But from the 1970s to the 1990s, the US government ran Project Stargate. They actually tried to develop psychic espionage. They spent millions. They believed, at some level, that it might work. The results were questionable. The program was eventually shut down, but the fact that they tried, that the government explored the paranormal with real funding and real personnel, that's not a theory, that's history. So where does this leave us tonight? 10 stories. 10 times the conspiracy theorists were right. Not about everything, of course. Not about aliens in the desert or lizard people or the moon landing being fake, but about some things, important things. The government did experiment on its citizens. They did lie about war. They did spy on activists, poison alcohol, hide evidence of corporate murder. And here's what matters most. The people who figured it out weren't geniuses. They were insiders with special access. They were just paying attention. They were skeptical. They refused to accept comfortable lies. That instinct, the one that questions, that doubts, that wonders what's being hidden, that instinct is not paranoia, it's survival. Tonight, as you lie here in the quiet, let these stories settle not as warnings, but as reminders. You are not crazy for questioning. You are not alone in your doubt. The pattern you see might be real. But you don't need to solve every mystery tonight. You don't need to uncover every secret. The only secret that matters right now is the one your body already knows, that rest is safe, that sleep is surrender, not defeat, that the dark is not always hiding something. Sometimes the dark is just the dark, and in it, you can finally let go. The conspiracies will still be here tomorrow. The truths will wait. Tonight, you have permission to rest. Thank you for being here. If this episode helped quiet your mind, please consider leaving a like. It helps others find their way to this space. Good night.